In 1979, Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. Most Americans remember that as the beginning of the conflict between the two countries. It wasn't. The real beginning was 38 years earlier, in the middle of World War II, when Allied forces rolled into Iran and changed everything. This is the story that explains every headline you've seen about Iran for the past 70 years, August 1941. World War II is at a critical turning point. Nazi Germany has already overrun France, the Netherlands, and most of Europe. The Soviet Union is fighting for survival after Hitler's invasion just 2 months earlier, and Iran sits in the middle of everything, with the largest oil fields in the world. Iran's ruler, Shah Reza Pahlavi, had declared neutrality. He refused to expel the thousands of German advisors working inside his country. Britain and the Soviet Union could not allow that. If Germany gained access to Iranian oil, or worse, used Iran as a land bridge to reach the Soviet Union from the south, the war in the East could be lost. On August 25, 1941, British and Soviet forces invaded Iran simultaneously. It was over in 5 days. The Shah abdicated. His 21-year-old son, Mohammad Reza, was placed on the throne, young, inexperienced, and entirely dependent on foreign powers to keep his position. Iran became an Allied supply corridor, the route through which the United States sent billions of dollars in war material to the Soviet Union. They called it the Persian Corridor. The occupation saved the Allied war effort. It also broke something inside Iran that would never fully heal. After the war ended, British troops withdrew, but British oil companies did not. The Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, today known as BP, had been extracting Iranian oil since 1913 under terms that gave Iran almost nothing. For every dollar of profit, Iran received cents. In 1951, Iranians elected a new prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. He was 69 years old, soft-spoken, and absolutely immovable on one point: Iranian oil belonged to Iran. Mossadegh nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The British were furious. They imposed an embargo. They convinced the world not to buy Iranian oil. Mossadegh traveled to New York to make Iran's case at the United Nations. Time magazine named him Person of the Year in 1951. The American public largely sympathized with him. The Truman administration tried to mediate. Then Dwight Eisenhower became president, and the calculation changed entirely. In the early Cold War, the word nationalist made Washington nervous. Mossadegh wasn't a communist. He had no love for the Soviet Union, but he was weakening the Shah, and a weak Shah in a country bordering the USSR was something the CIA could not accept. The British pitched a plan: remove Mossadegh by force. They needed American help. The CIA agreed. Operation Ajax, known in Britain as Operation Boot, was launched in August 1953. CIA officer Kermit Roosevelt Jr., grandson of Theodore Roosevelt, was sent to Tehran with a budget of $1 million. The operation used every tool available: bribing Iranian military officers, paying crowds to take to the streets, planting stories in Iranian newspapers, organizing protests against Mossadegh. On August 19, 1953, pro-Shah forces and paid mobs surrounded the Prime Minister's home. Mossadegh was arrested. He would spend the rest of his life under house arrest. The Shah returned to power, now completely dependent on American support to survive. The CIA considered it a clean success. Iranians did not forget. For 26 years after the coup, the Shah ruled Iran with American backing and with a secret police force, Savak, trained partly by the CIA, known for brutal suppression of dissent. Every opposition group in Iran, liberals, nationalists, communists, and Islamists, shared one belief: America had stolen their democracy in 1953. When the Iranian Revolution came in 1979, it wasn't just directed at the Shah, it was directed at the country Iranians believed had destroyed their only chance at self-determination. When students stormed the U.S. Embassy and took 52 Americans hostage, they weren't acting randomly. They called the embassy the Den of Spies, a reference to the CIA operation that had launched from inside those same walls 26 years earlier. The hostage crisis destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency. Ronald Reagan came to power. The U.S. supported Saddam Hussein's Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, in which over 1 million people died. The sanctions, the nuclear standoffs, the proxy conflicts across the Middle East, all of it traces a direct line back to 1953, and 1953 traces a direct line back to 1941, when Allied forces occupied Iran to save the war effort, installed a 21-year-old shah, and set in motion everything that followed. World War II is usually taught as a story about Europe, about D-Day, about Stalingrad, about the fall of Berlin. But the war had consequences that reached far beyond Europe. In Iran, a wartime occupation created a dependency. That dependency created a coup. That coup created a revolution. That revolution created the conflict that shapes American foreign policy to this day. History doesn't end when the war ends. Sometimes it's just getting started.